Hello, this is Mike. Today we're going to see how to change the oil in the John Deere E100. This is the E100. First thing we're going to do is we're going to warm up the engine and let the oil get kind of heated up. So you want to sit on it properly, everything, turn the key on, let it run. And you'll notice that because there's 50 hours of use on the machine, you notice that it cycles to that service because it's 50 hours, and up on your cowling it says to do the first service every year or within 50 hours of service. You should make sure that you stick to this service just to keep your engine running as efficiently as possible. So I'm going to run this and heat it up a little bit. So I let it run for a few minutes. We're going to go ahead and turn it off. Make sure we put the parking brake on. Take the key out. I just put the key on the seat. No problems with that. We're going to open up the cowling. And we see on the left-hand side of the engine, we have the oil filter. The one thing that they don't tell you is that, first of all, this is a John Deere filter. I'm up here in Alaska, and Lowe's doesn't carry the John Deere filter. So I looked up the specific changeover, and today I'm putting on the Brigs and Straton filter. Part number 492932S in its place. It's the same thing, but it's just Brigs and Straton, and it's the conversion that will work on the E100. On the right hand side of the mower, you'll see your oil cock that comes out of here with a black rubber cap on it. That black rubber cap is just going to slide off. That's the only thing holding oil into your motor. So be careful when you take it off. You don't want to damage it, because it's just going to pop back on there, and you'll see that right down here on the right hand side there's a little knob with a little slot, and you just slide that out, and then when you put it back on, you need to make sure that that slot is in the same area. So I'm just going to slide my oil catch basin underneath here as best as I can. We're going to grab this, just pull it off, and that oil is going to come out. Just let it run out. You can see it's kind of dark. Good idea that we're changing this. So I'm going to let that finish and we'll get back to the video. Now here you can see that little cap that I took off. It's got two little slots on both sides. Move it in here a little bit. So when you slide that on there, you need to slide it on and turn it to the left, and that locks it on. You can see that. So the oil's still trickling out a little bit. I'm just going to let that continue. I'm going to go ahead and check We can see that there's no oil on the dipstick, so that's a good thing. And I like to make sure I get as much of that oil out of there as I can. Just step on it and pivot it a little bit. So the oil is no longer coming out. You can see those two little knobs that are on there. So we're going to take this, put that back on there, and give it a turn to the left, just to lock it back on. That's all there is to it. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take off this oil filter. I got my strap wrench on there. Just because of the way that it sits, I got my catch basin down here. I put a little lid, and that way any of the oil that'll come out of there will drip on the lid and down into the catch basin. And just turn your filter. Don't take it off yet. Just hand tighten it back on there. Grab yourself a rag and wipe as much of that gunk off from around there as you can. There you go. Now you can just take that filter and take it right off. And see your oils dripping down onto that lid or a better catch basin that you might have. There's your filter. Let that drip off there a little bit. Now there's my oil filter side by side. Even though it's not a John Deere filter, once again, this is the Brigs and Straton. Part number 492932S. Exactly the same thing that we need. An important aspect to remember is we want to put a little bit of oil on that ring. So I just dip my finger in the oil and we're going to rub it on this rubber ring here. Get ready to put it on. So the O-ring there has some oil on it. We're going to go screw it back on the machine. Make sure when you're putting that oil filter on that the threads are on there. Don't try and screw it on too hard. It should go on pretty easy. Just twist it on by hand. You'll notice right there it says hand tighten only, and then check for leaks. Now I got the oil filter back on there, and I gotta confess I did use my strap wrench and just gave it about half of a turn on there. Seems pretty solid. Looks good. So now we're going to put oil back in the machine. My oil filter's on. My drain cap is on and turned and locked in place. Now it calls for 1.5 quarts but I'm going to put in 1 quart. I'm going to run it just a little bit. Then I'll check the dipstick and add appropriate oil to the oil chamber. And it calls for 1030 oil. And I'm just using the John Deere appropriate turf guard 4-cycle 1030. I'm going to put 1 quart in, run it, check the dipstick, and then add as much as I need for it to be appropriate levels on the dipstick. We can see how that oil is nice and clean. Try not to make too big of a mess. Now I'm going to run it and check the dipstick. Before I run it, I'm going to go ahead and put the dipstick in. Check the level. And I can tell I'm going to add a little bit more, but I'm going to run it first, get it in that oil filter. Okay, I ran the motor, and you saw me check the oil spigot, and I'm just checking for leaks here at the oil filter. Everything looks good. Wipe off that excess oil. Looking good. Don't see any leaks. I'm gonna check that dipstick. And I'm going to add about half a more quart, not quite half. And we're looking good, right where it should be. So about 1.5 quarts. So one more time in review on changing the oil is pay attention to your service hour counter. After you change the oil, the service will still come on and off and for a certain amount of time, and then it just goes away. Don't forget to check your service schedule on your cowling. Your oil pitcock here just has a little sleeve that turns and slides off. Don't forget to put it back on and turn it to the left to lock it in. The oil filter, make sure that is hand tight, maybe just a little bit more. Make sure you check it for leaks. And if you can't find the proper John Deere E100 oil filter, you can always use the Brigs and Straton 492932S. Thanks to my friends at Lowe's for helping me figure that out. Other than that, have fun. It's a great machine. Thank you.